So we're finally out of the classroom.
Yes, we are.
You know, it was funny how I actually even start to take your course. It was I needed one more credit or 3 more credits to graduate, and I was like, I don't know, I needed one more distribution course to take, and I wasn't sure what I should choose. Should I choose something like filmmaking oriented, just to, end the college years on a high note? And I was like, RTVF 001. I feel like that could be interesting and not too, workload heavy. It's an intro course.
Not too much of a slave driver, just a little bit.
Yeah, not too much. I will say the classes do move pretty fast, but it's a lot of great information. And I'm glad I took it because
I'm glad you took the class too.
Yeah.
You're an asset to the class. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm happy to finally get into the production side of things once we move into
right after the midterm.
Yeah,
you better pass it.
Oh, when is that? When is that? When is that? That's coming up.
Coming up.
Oh, jeez. I got to stop doing these podcast episodes.
Start
focusing
studying,
on.
I have a funny feeling you're going to do okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, it comes naturally to me, like I said. But what do you think of the space?
Unbelievable.
You love it?
It's not what I expected, Tony. It's impressive, very impressive.
Yeah, it's funny how I got in touch with these guys. Sam here, the owner, he was selling that monitor on the top of my camera there. And I was like, this would be a great way to, meet him, get my foot in the door. So I came to the office, met up with him. We did the transaction. I bought the monitor from him. But after that, I was like, hey, listen, I'm really interested in what you do here. I'm a college student. I'd love to come on like a video job with you and just, you don't have to pay me. I just want to see what you guys do because this is something I want to do as a career. And he ended up hitting me up a couple months later. So I waited. I kept bothering him on Instagram DMs. I'm like, hey, just following up on my request. And eventually he brought me on a job and I did a free shoot for him because it was like a trial run almost. And he loved what I did. And ever since then, we've been working together. I've been using the studio. It's just weird how it works out.
I wish I could take the whole class here for a field trip.
Yeah,
I really do. To see a 3-camera
that would be cool
that you have here.
Well, so what is I don't want to spoil the class, but what's the hands-on stuff that we get to do with production?
We're going to do a mock commercial. We're going to do all the shots. We're going to direct a couple of scenes and things like that. But nothing like this with the equipment that you have here. This is really impressive.
Yeah. So I had to borrow a few pieces of equipment here. So the two tight cameras aren't mine. They're Nick's, who is a guy at the office. This main one's is mine. So I have a lot of help here. The lighting's not really; it's the studios, but they're gracious enough to.
What kind of lighting is this? I've never seen.
Yeah, this is called a lantern.
I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, it's great for 2-person interviews because it diffuses nice soft lighting on 2 subjects across the table, like this. Then we got some hair lights going.
Yeah, this is new to me though.
Yeah, the lantern's really great because it's soft. It's not like harsh lighting. These tubes, we got fill lights going, so that's kind of the shadow side here to bring up. And then we have some color pop, so blue and red. I don't know, I just thought it looked cool. Yeah, so
that's one of the things I wish I could do more with the production, the different kinds of lighting, key lighting, backlighting, spotlighting. We just don't get to that, but this is a lesson for me right now.
Well, it's actually very important lighting. People don't understand. In my field, I've seen so many people that do videography and photography, and they don't think about lights.
Yeah.
They just think about what is the best camera or what is the best lens? But no, it's what is the best light? Yeah. How do you do your 3-point lighting? Exactly. Are you doing that right? Yeah. So very important, but a lot of help to be in the studio. But we're here, and
I'm here too. Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yep. I just want to get the conversation started. Obviously, we have your book on the table here, 5 Freshmen. Yeah. But I wanted to even go long before this. What was the conception of your storytelling sort of passion? When did you realize I'm a storyteller?
As a kid, I published a neighborhood newspaper. Would you believe it? It was in the DNA, and I enjoyed doing it right from the start. I did it at camp. I did it when I got to school. I always did newsletters. I had to stay away from science, Tony, because I couldn't pass a science course to save my life.
Wow.
We had time. I tell you all the trials and tribulations of trying to get through science. But I ended up writing and doing storytelling and in different ways. I worked, I was a writer for 1010 Wins, which is storytelling. That's what they teach you. I enjoyed that. And then I was a reporter for WCBS News Radio 880. That was a different kind of writing because I was actually writing stories that would be aired. Those were different. And then I got into fiction, and I've dabbled in it all, tried it all.
So what was what was the draw to that whole like lifestyle with whether it was broadcasting, story, like what was like, this is what where I want to be?
I can tell you. So most kids when they're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, they want to be firemen, policemen, astronauts, something like that. I wanted to be a subway motorman. I kid you not.
Wow.
My father had to take me on the most people won't recognize the Brighton line in Brooklyn, where I grew up, to East 14th Street and back just to ride the subway. Well, I got that out of my system. I got addicted to game shows. I loved game shows. And again, they're on now, but nothing the way they were back when I was a kid. And when I was home from school and I was sick, as soon as my parents were out the door at work, I propped myself up on the couch and I watched game shows from top of the day to the end of the day. Treasure Hunt, Queen for a Day, Player Hunt. You've never heard of any of these, Concentration. But there was a whole day of game shows. And I remember I was very disappointed about 1:30 when they had soap operas on. I had to stop watching game shows. Well, anyway, I pleaded with my parents to take me to see a game show taped. And in those days, they were at Rockefeller Center in Manhattan, beautiful area. And I think you had to be 12, if I'm not mistaken. And I waited and waited, looked through the mail slot. I can still remember. And finally, that NBC logo came, and we got to go to see, I think it was Tic-Tac-Toe. One of the shows that was eventually involved in the quiz show scandal. That's another story. And I think my parents thought if they took me, it would get out of my system. It did just the opposite. I watched the set, which was small. Walked in, you're high above, the balcony, it's like a balcony seating, and the set was small. But what was more interesting to me, what people at home don't see, was everything that was going on around this little set. And I was hooked, and I wanted to get into TV and broadcasting. And I was
so
hooked.
The whole like production side of it, you were like all these like moving parts. You were really infatuated,
and that kind of morphed into the writing part of it. So between the two, writing, production, I was hooked on a career in television. And when I got to college, I was graduating from Cornell University back then in 1969, and I applied to every network affiliate all over the place. And in those days, there was no cable or streaming, so you were limited where you could apply to, and things weren't looking too good. But I was at Cornell at a very good time. I don't know if that's the right term. Very momentous time.
Obviously,
my book.
Yeah.
When the demonstrations broke out, and on April 19th, 1969, which my wife's birthday was April 19th, so I know that date. And I was in the right place. Again, I'm using the wrong term. Maybe I was in the wrong place. My father was staying in the Student Union building, and I got a call from him at 5 a.m., and I'm a sound sleeper. This is Dad. I'm being held hostage, but I'm going to be okay. And I went back to sleep because he said, I'm okay. At 8 a.m., the network news broke, and it was Dateline, Ithaca, New York, Cornell. Parents, employees being held hostage in the Student Union building. And he was released very quickly. But I got to see up close and personal what was happening at Cornell. And I think that was an entree for me to get an entry-level job at CBS News coming out of college.
Because of the knowledge of the event?
Yeah, because I had been there during the turbulent 60s, particularly what was happening at Cornell, so I got a break. That lasted all of 60 seconds because when I got there, the show was canceled that I was assigned to, and I was going to be Captain Kangaroo's cue card boy. This is what I went to college for 4 years for.
So you go to college. You study all this about broadcasting.
Well, it was really English major. It was an English major.
English major.
I was very disappointed. There was very little broadcasting back then.
So you're like, when you had sort of an idea of what you want to do when you got out, though.
Exactly.
You were like,
I knew what I wanted.
CBS, you were like, this is what I want to do.
Anywhere. I would have taken any job in any affiliate anywhere, but there was slim pickings. But I was, again, CBS was obviously looking for somebody who had been through all of the turbulent times, and I got a job as a desk assistant after I was Captain Q.
That's where you start, right? Like
desk assistant, and boy, do you learn, because I was sitting closer to the correspondent going on the air than I am to you right now. You're his right hand. You don't do exciting things. You roll copy, you get coffee, you pick up dry cleaning, but you learn that newsroom. I learned that newsroom, and I loved it. But I wanted to get the master's in broadcasting, so I left. And one of my bosses said to me, you'll learn more here in one day than you will in a college classroom. I said, okay.
Do you think that's true?
50-50. I learned a lot in both places, Tony, both places. So I started to teach English by day and master's program by night. And I always wondered what would have happened if I had stayed at CBS. Would I have gone higher, whatever, the desk assistant. But I taught English. I became a assistant principal and a principal. But I kept wondering what would have happened if I had stayed there. And then I was at Hofstra one day when the professor next door, this was a turning point, Susan Murphy, I think was her name. I said, Happy Thanksgiving. And she said, I'm working. I said, who works on Thanksgiving? She said, I do. I'm a substitute writer for 1010 Wins, the old news station. And to cut to the chase, she got me on the substitute list. And that's one thing led to the next. And I wasn't getting as much work as I would have liked. So a friend of mine dragged me to a broadcasting meeting convention, and I bumped into the news director at WCBS News Radio 880. I said, do you ever hire, they were the competition, do you ever hire subs? He says, no, we cover ourselves. But I used a line which I would suggest any aspiring writer.
This was a news convention, you said?
No, it was broadcasting conventions.
So what does that entail? What is that?
Just meetings, seminars on news writing, what's going on in the news.
Is that still a
one
thing
Day, it was, they
today?
probably have them all the time. I see them advertised on the internet. So I went and I bumped into, literally, the news director at the competition, WCBS, and I used a line which I suggest anybody out there looking for a job should use: keep my application on file and me in mind if things change. Well, later a few weeks, months later, I got a contact from him. Could you write a Sunday piece on education? And now I'll cut to the chase because it's involved. The next thing I knew, he said, can you sustain a daily report on education? And from there, I became the education reporter for 12 years at WCBS.
So he tested you. He
wanted
told
to see
you.
it. Yeah, I did a piece. I forget what was on. Just a 1 minute piece. I taped it at Hofstra, sent it in. I was going to write it, but he liked the way I guess I sounded based on the pilot tape, and the rest was history.
Wow.
So
Very
that's how I got.
interesting.
Yeah, that's how I got working at CBS and writing the rest of the time. But so I've had two lives: education and broadcasting.
Nice. You have this book. You talked briefly about your creative experience in broadcasting. You're also a principal, right?
Yeah.
So
21 years.
yeah, that must have brought a lot of experience to even your creative writing, right?
Yeah. Well, it's my second book that I did.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
principal of the thing. So I've done two, and the third one's coming out. I just like to write.
Yeah.
What happened? The genesis of this book. Can I talk about that a little bit?
We'll get to
Okay,
yeah
sure.
yeah. I want to get like a nice little palette before we dive into the
Gotcha.
specifics.
Absolutely.
What is your creative writing process? Like, what do you? I feel like it's because it's so different, varies based on person to person,
yes,
right?
yes.
It's an art, just like filmmaking, just like
yeah.
a painting is.
I was going to say, use painting as an example. To me, I was going to use palette. You beat me to the punch, but it's my chance to take a blank slate and do something with it. I get a germ of an idea, and then I can develop it. I use a lot of index cards, believe it or not, ideas. And then for all three books, even though they're very different, my three books, I jot down the ideas, and then eventually something starts to come together that's going to be the book. The first one's semi-autobiographical, the second one's a memoir, the third one's a novel. But all three creative processes were similar. I walk a lot. I walk 2-3 miles a day. I get ideas, I jot them down, and then I kind of put them together.
So that's nice. So you're walking around, your mind's clear, and you're listening to your inner.
Relatively clear.
Yeah. Right. So that's because I think again, like you get inspiration from different places, right? And sometimes you might just see something on the road or the street, or like a bird or something, and it's like. It sparks this thing.
But usually it's an event, somebody I meet or something I've seen or something I've heard about, and one thing leads to the next. One can just be a basic idea. And this third book that's coming out, that's what happened about a principal who got in trouble. And it just grew like a mushroom. The story just grew. My mind worked on that one, and next thing you know, I had a full novel, and I had diagrammed it. I know where I'm going. One thing I do, I know where I'm going. I know what the beginning is, the middle, and the end.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I can sometimes I have to work backwards.
No.
I have the climax.
I knew it was. I did know it was going to end, but I knew what all the stops were going to be along the way. And I have a pretty. I'm OCD in terms. My wife will tell you that.
I think you have to be a little bit.
Yeah, I'm very regimented in terms of writing. I chuckle in the morning when I listen to people. I don't chuckle. That's the wrong word. I guess I commiserate with people who have long commutes. I have a very long commute to work, 15 seconds. I'm on the porch. I have a bridge table, which the neighbors joke about, and I have my word processor, a pot of coffee. Here it is, right here, and the
Word
dog.
processor. What is a word?
A laptop.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, your choice
I
of
was
words.
like, wait a minute. The generational.
Yes,
is-
generational gap there, showing my age. I have my laptop and the dog. The dog has to be with me on the side. and 15 seconds I'm at work. And if the storm is coming, I pack up and I go in. If it starts to rain, it's
So
great.
that's your like almost like ritual.
That's
So
my ritual.
it's
That's
like
my
you need-
routine. From now, it's just about now until November, I can work outside on the porch. And it's a sad day when I have to pack up and, it's too cold to work outside.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think, for me, what's helped me generate ideas, at least in terms of just idea generation, is not being in like small rooms. So like I would a lot of the times at my dorm at Hofstra, I'd be in this confined like dark space, and I'm trying to like come up with ideas.
Yeah,
I'm like, wait, why don't I like sit by a window, get some daylight, and like I don't know, or even go outside like you're doing, because I see it on Reddit. Reddit's like this sort of forums people talk about stuff. They say I have better ideas when I'm outside in nature.
You're exactly right. The neighbors joke about the fact you have a backyard. Why don't you sit in the backyard where it's nobody? Because I talk to the mailman, the sanitation people. Everybody knows me.
Yeah,
I like that, and it does. I find it more stimulating. So I like to work outside. I don't think I've ever, in all the years I've been in that house in a long time, ever worked in the backyard. That's for socializing, not for working. My office is a little porch right outside, and it works. It works for me.
Again, when you're meeting all these people, these are things you can include in your stories, right? And I'm sure you have.
Absolutely.
So there's different like anecdotes that you kind of mesh.
Definitely. One of the things I learned, and I hope anybody watching this podcast can take from, and I learned the hard way, you can't create characters. You cannot create characters. Otherwise, they're going to become two-dimensional.
Really?
You're going to have the quirky secretary, the pretty cheerleader, the dumb jock, the ditzy neighbor, whatever. They'll become stereotypes. They can become two-dimensional. All my characters are based on people I've met. And Tony, you may end up, I'm absolutely serious.
Yeah,
you may very well end up in one of my future books in 5 Freshmen.
Yeah.
Those 5 freshmen, people guess who are the 5 people. Now, some of them are composites. They're more than one people, but they are composites, and they're real people. Otherwise, they would be, as I say, stereotypes.
So composites are like a
Maybe
hybrid?
A hybrid, right? Maybe 2 people who are similar, but I'll bring traits to both. One of the exercises we had to do way back in one of my script writing classes was to write a dossier. So I would say, let's say it's you, Tony. I'd have to know everything about you, your habits, your hobbies, your idiosyncrasies, your likes, your dislikes. You really get to know your characters, and that's what I try to do with my five freshmen. Otherwise, again, as I say, they would be stereotypical.
So you don't think you can make an original character like not you? I'm saying just in general, like you can't.
Yeah, I base, maybe other people can, but I base characters in the 2 books I've written so far. The memoir is different because those are real situations. But in the first novel, this one, and the one that's coming out any minute, they're hybrids. I like your term. Hybrids of people I know. Wow. Yeah.
So that's interesting because you can almost like bring in like your friend to a story, but it's not your friend. It's like a completely different person, but they have all the traits of like a friend in your life.
Right. Wow. If you go to the supermarket and you have the same cashier every time, and she's a little weird.
Yeah.
She'll end up in one of my. She could end up in one of my novels, but I mix and match them, so it's not about her per se, but it's her.
It's also events too, though, that happen like in terms of, I don't know, your life experiences. Let's say you have life experiences that have taught you a lesson. Yeah. Now you want to convey that lesson to an audience. You need time to experience life too to write a story.
One of the things we'll do in the script, when we do script writing in your classes, there's an equation. There's no such thing as a new story per se. I'm not taking credit for this because it came from one of my professors who claims that all stories boil down to one of like 7. Boy meets girl, love triangle, things like that. However,
Golden Fleece.
Right.
Yep.
The equation, Cinderella story, the equation is like this. A, there's no such thing as a new story. B, no 2 people are exactly the same. Therefore, a new script is a combination of an old story with new characters. So if you look at let's take West Side Story. That's Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example that I use with the class. And there've been other sitcoms, situation comedies that I've watched. I've seen the same plot. They've just changed the character. You run out of storylines in TV writing. And that's a very important lesson I'm going to do with the class. You can take an old script, an old line, an old plot line, substitute your characters. You've got a completely different script.
Yeah, well, I've actually read a book. It's called Save the Cat, and it's a script writing book.
Yeah,
yes.
Somebody gave me a copy of that.
That's the book. It's the no BS screenwriting book. It tells you studios want to make money. You need to give them good stories. You need to do it in these categories. They listed like those things.
Yeah.
Golden Fleece. I don't know them off the top of my head, but there's monster in the house, but the house could be a city, and the monster could be anything. Like it could be any house, any monster.
Yeah.
There's all these archetype stories. You could fit every movie out there into them.
Right, exactly.
And it's interesting. It's also like, really, there's no other type of story out there. It all boils down to those.
It's funny you mentioned that book because I ordered off Amazon and
Oh,
other
you did?
places. No, other books.
Oh, other books.
And they're all on my shelf, untouched.
Oh, yeah.
Totally untouched. That one somebody gave to me, and that one I read. It's just funny you mentioned that.
Yeah.
I said, what kind of title is this?
Save the Cat.
So he said, please read this book. And I did, yeah.
Wow. Do you ever have any like roadblocks when you're writing, and how do you work around them?
I'm lucky in that way, because again, I'm so compulsive in what I do. If I find I don't feel creative that day, I just get up and do something else. It happens. Yeah, I get that. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm just not in the mood to develop it, and I just put everything aside. That's an easy one for me.
That takes a lot of patience, though, because I'll be honest with myself. I've done some self-reflection. I'm very impatient when it comes to creative processes, and I want to conceptualize this. I want to make this. Even when I'm editing like a film that I'm making, I'm just not feeling it.
You know what it is? Since I have my plot outlined, I'll talk about the third book right now in particular about principal gets into trouble. I know where it's going, and I know who so I have just to flesh it out. I really won't hit roadblocks because I don't need that much of a creative bend at that point because I know what it's going to be and where it's going. So if I'm up to it, I can flesh it out. To use your term before, I'm working backwards in a way because I know how that chapter is going to end, and that's a whole other story about how chapters should end. But I'm lucky in that way that I get the destination, and now I root back to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
that was the term you used before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I'll come up with like, I want this to be like the climax, or I want this to happen, but I don't have the start, and it's just like maybe sometimes I work back. I've heard people that they work backwards, and sometimes they flesh out the final.
Everyone's got a different. I have to say that there's no recipe, Tony. Again, anybody who's watching this podcast, my advice to them: do what works for you. That's the best advice I could say. Things work differently. I've heard people who say they have to do a certain number of words per day. I tried that for a while. In other words,
so your process has changed throughout your life?
A little bit. I still go for the time element. Like I'll work 2.5 hours a day. I set that time to work.
You save it, even if you have some more to tell, or after the 2 hours?
Yeah, unless sometimes I'll go a little beyond, but I pretty much stick to the time.
Because when you wake up the next day, you're new you, and you're a new person. You have a different
perspective on things.
And maybe you edit something you did yesterday and differently.
How many people have said, I didn't want to be in this category, that I've got a novel sitting in the desk drawer for 20 years. I've heard people say that. And that's something I didn't want to do. So I try to discipline myself to write every day. If you're serious about writing, you do need that self-discipline. A quick anecdote that I'll tell you that's unrelated to this. During the summer, we were at a resort, and my father was very close friends with a textbook writer, a good friend of his. He wrote review books for social studies, a great guy. And he had an apartment right near ours, and he wrote, it was a rule, you couldn't talk to him until he did 5 pages of the review book every day. He was locked up. Sometimes it took more time, sometimes less time. But I learned a lot from that guy on discipline in writing. You could not talk to him. He would not come out of the home office he had there until he had 5 pages. Not 10, not 20, 5 a day. And gradually, during the summers, review books got done. I learned a lot from him. I copied that style.
So that's like you have to force yourself not to speak to anyone.
You use the operative word, force. Some people can't force themselves. You say you can't force yourself in a creative process. Take a totally different opinion from what you just said, a different way of doing things. Some days they'll write 25 pages, some days none. But he wrote, maybe because it was a textbook, maybe it was different, and he had it outlined, a history. But I did that with all my writing, with this book, the second book, and my third book. Yeah.
So how do you know when it's finished?
Oh, I know when the book is finished.
Yeah, how do you know when you're done?
I know. I'm outlined. This one I just finished. It was outlined all the chapters. I knew when I was done. When it was done.
But like maybe yes, you finished the chapters, but like, did you go back and edit it?
Oh, do I ever? I'm a revision.
Yeah.
I am a big I
So you
revise.
finish it and then you go back
I
and you
let
do
it
a
sit
revision
for a
round.
while. Did I write this?
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah, I don't do it right away. I let it sit and sleep for a while, and then I go back and say, "What?"
How long do you let it sit?
It depends. It could be a week. It could be whatever. It could be 2 days. I'm proofreading now, and which is my least favorite thing to do. To be honest, I don't
Really?
like proofreading. Yeah,
Really
I'm not a good proofreader, and I'm picking up things. I said, this will be confusing to the reader. Even on this is the final read through, and I picked up a couple of things which needed to be, I had to fix that were not clear.
And it's almost like sometimes, at least for me, right? And this is not with books necessarily, but more filmmaking. I'll edit a certain scene like a certain way that I really like.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I go back and I'm like, that doesn't make sense to the viewer. But
Exactly.
I love it and I get personal with it
Yeah.
and I want to keep it. But I'm like, I know it. This doesn't
But why
best
do you
serve it.
love it if you think somebody else is not going to take to it?
So I guess maybe I understand the context of it better in the overarching story when that part hasn't been told yet.
Okay.
You know, like this doesn't make sense to be told at this time because we haven't revealed this about this character or something.
Okay.
But for me, I'm just like, it's hard. You know, I used to be very personal with my work. It was only until my marketing internship where I was really opened up to criticism because I never got criticism for anything I did. Design work, videos, photos, anything, right? So I get to this internship. This was May of 2023, that whole summer. So going into junior year. I do this internship at Motoramo Media. It's a marketing agency it's actually nearby, actually. It's in Port Washington. And I had a marketing manager, and she would critique my designs. And sometimes my design would have to get fixed or completely changed. And I would get personal about it because I never got...
You can't get
I know,
personal.
but I never had that exposure to it. And once I got the exposure to being critiqued, I understood, okay, let's like separate me and the work for a second. Because I would mesh it. Be like, the work is me.
Yeah.
And you're insulting me if you're insulting me, you know?
But you know something? Do one plug for internships, how important they are.
Yeah.
You know, I push that with the class.
Yeah.
Say that.
So, yes. You know me.
making it-
You know how my view is on school.
Yeah,
but I will
yeah.
say internships, for me, have been helpful. Just because, again, I'm getting exposed to that.
Yeah, they're. Do I want to do this for the rest of my life? This particular job. Let's say veterinary medicine. You work for a vet as an intern.
Yeah.
I say, am I going to do this for 8 hours? Yeah, maybe not. And also, you get a foot in the door. That after the internship, they may invite you back. So I'm a big proponent of internships.
Yeah, we'll get into. I have some education questions that
Okay,
we'll get into.
okay.
I'm excited for that part because I think it'll be a good.
I also want to say something you said about the criticism.
Yeah, go ahead.
That I always say to my classes. I tried to learn golf, everybody out there in TV land. And I couldn't even hit the ball. I swung the club.
Yeah, yeah.
I kept missing it. But the coach was afraid to criticize me.
good.
So he said, try, nice try. You're getting closer, even better. Never told me what I was doing wrong. We've all been accustomed not to be criticized. We're fear of criticism. Criticism's a good thing, and I say that to my students when they analyze each other's performances in a class. That's how you learn from mistakes.
Well,
And
you do a lot of that in the class.
I
You
try
critique.
to, but everyone's afraid to criticize. You know, everything's good. That coach kept saying to me, "Better, you're getting closer." I never learned. I gave up on golf. It was a lost cause. I wouldn't go near a golf club now.
Well, even transcending golf, like when you have someone that I think it takes a certain level of confidence to be able to tell, like, let's say you tell me something about my work. You have to be confident, like, that, you know, this is what I mean by when I say this. Like, for me, when I used to not like to critique people because I thought that was insulting them.
Exactly.
But once I got used to it and I'm like, I had more conviction, and when I spoke, I'm like, just try to understand me real quick. Don't like,
right. That's
I know it might sound a little forward and like, you know,
But
out there,
you're
but
here to help.
yeah, I'm here to help. So like, this is wrong. Let's fix it. Let's help.
Exactly.
You know? So yeah, it's the criticism journey for me has been, and even working with these guys, I'm doing edits every week, so I'm getting critique and all that stuff. And now it's just a process. I realize it's a process.
You learn from mistakes.
Yeah.
That's the way you learn.
Yeah. I've already learned from mistakes even on the podcast, like shooting my own homemade podcast. Like, you know, I've had episodes where no lights have fell, but like some things have like turned off mid episode. I'm like, why did that happen? Or like, the camera stops recording out of nowhere, the audios. But now I think I'm starting to slowly but surely get up
But
there.
that experience pays off.
Exactly. So let's see where we're at. So do you have a least favorable part of writing?
Oh, that, as I mentioned before, proofreading. I hate to go back over. My secretary used to say, "You're the worst proofreader because you see things the way you're an optimist. So you see things the way they are." So let's say I have a sentence. I went to the theater, and I would write, "I went to the theater," just by mistake.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't see it. I would just see one the, and he used to catch me on that. Or I had a male secretary. It was fantastic. His trick was to read backwards. Proofreading. So that way you read the sentence, then you'll see if there's a mistake.
That helps too because you're also the writer and the proofreader. So you're staring at this for like years, basically.
Exactly.
You're just looking at the same text, so like your eyes will not see.
Basically, I'm reading it right. I'm saying what I wrote, and that's what
you're like, it's fine.
I prefer somebody else to proofread. I could critique if you gave me right now an essay you wrote, I could critique it without a problem and proofread it because I haven't seen it before. Yes.
Like even for like videos I've been working on for just days. I need another pair of eyes to look at it. I'm like, come here, like show me what's wrong because I cannot find what's wrong.
No.
Do you have a favorite part? What's your most favorite part, would you say?
I think the character development, as I said before,
Yeah.
that's the most fun. I have the plot, but now I insert the people into the plot. Yeah, I'd say that's the most enjoyable part in both books that I've done. I look for comic relief in the current book. One thing I'll share, which is kind of funny, I need some comic relief because it's a heavy story. I have a housekeeper, Mavis, and she's a composite of a hybrid, I like your term, of a few people I've met, and she adds a lot of comic relief. So I have fun with, the trouble that she gets into, but it's to lighten the load of this book, which is kind of heavy.
Nice.
So I like the characters. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So now we'll get into the book. Obviously, we have a book here. It's sitting on this cup as the stand here, but it's great. It's a thick book. It's
438 pages.
A lot of pages. Let me talk about the cover art. Did you have a hand in this?
Yes, I did.
What did you want to do?
Totally unartistic, if there's such a word. But I did have a concept because the Cornell campus, you may argue which is the best college in America, but I think Cornell is probably the prettiest.
My sister goes there.
Yeah, right. She's the best.
She loves it.
It's like in a state park. So I did have a concept for it. I wanted to get the Tower of the Quadrangle in, and I worked with a cover designer. And my wife took a look at the first draft, and she thought there should be more color because it was the fall. So the color that you see there, if you can see it in the trees and everything.
Yeah.
She added the blue sky. She did a lot in helping me out.
So nice.
She's artistic and musical, which I am not. And that was the cover design.
Nice, cool.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe a broad question, but what made you want to tell this story?
Well, again, having lived through the turbulent 60s, and specifically April 19th, 1969 at the Cornell campus, I would tell these stories at dinner parties. Everybody wanted to know what it was like to be there. And then I ended up, which again is a story itself. But
maybe just for the audience, just briefly touch over what was going on during the 60s.
Yeah. Columbia, Berkeley, you had a lot of protests. Vietnam was number one. Women's lib, number two. Civil rights, number three. Not in that particular order, but there was protest after protest at the big college, at the campuses. And Cornell's was a little different. Hard to say this, talk about personal experiences, bringing back. Cornell was different because for the first time, guns appeared. Guns were pointed out the window for the demands that the students made at the Student Union building. Ironically, I showed this to my class, it was Parents' Weekend, and there's a sign, welcome parents, and then you see these windows and guns and everything just didn't go together. So everybody wanted to know what it was really like to be on campus for those 7 days. And I started to tell the class. I ended up getting a gift from CBS TV about the 60s, and I showed it to the class. Got more questions. So I decided I would write a book about this, a textbook. But I said, that's boring. It's been done.
Yeah.
So I said, let me turn this into a novel, to a drama. And I originally called it, it's the first time I've said this to anybody, the Diary of 1969. How many books had a diary of?
Yeah.
So I said, this is interesting. I said, what is this? It's the story of 5 freshmen. And that's how the title came. It's 5 freshmen who entered Cornell in 1965, totally different from totally different backgrounds. Here we go again with the real characters. 5 totally different freshmen.
Why 5?
It just worked because there were
Just
5. Yeah, I could have done. There were 5 different hybrids that I wanted. To
Yeah.
And I followed them from orientation day to graduation day in 1969 and what happens to each. And without giving away too much, it's a soap opera, it's a saga of what happens to each as the war in Vietnam starts to overtake the college campus.
Yeah.
There was the physicals, Army physicals, which was a scary, scary thing. Probably the scariest moment in my life was the lottery. I don't know if viewers who are watching this know about that, but it was decided, if I could talk a few seconds about that, they decided that there was a manpower shortage. And how are they going to determine who stays on campus and who doesn't? Who's going to be drafted immediately and who isn't? And you would go to class, Tony, and picture our class, and before everybody would be talking. And then you and I would be, I was a student, you and I would be chatting, and we'd say, what happened to Rob? And then you'd look at me and say, you don't know? Rob was drafted by his draft board and is reporting immediately to his Midwestern town, and he's leaving campus. So it was scary times. So they had to decide how to determine who would get drafted and who wouldn't. So they had a lottery. I have to say it was the scariest time of my life, because are you going to continue as a student, or you're packing your bags and going to Vietnam? This is all in the book.
Yeah.
And I remember most of the guys I was in fraternity, stayed at the house and watched on TV. I wanted to be alone. Don't ask me why. I didn't want to share this. I was so nervous. So I went to the Student Union building. It was a long, thin room where there's a TV perched up on top. I think it was a black and white TV in those days.
Yeah.
Perched on brackets. And it was like a bingo game, a bad bingo game. They explained the rules roughly. I'm kind of summarizing here. The top 120, pack your bags, you're probably going to go, depends on your local draft board. 120 to 240, if that's your number. It depends on your local draft board. You're in the middle. 240 to 366, number of birthdays. You're probably safe. Probably. But I remember they said nobody's safe. Nobody is really safe. Depends on manpower needs. Wow. So let the numbers begin by birthdays. And they put like a bingo drum. They started to pull out birthdays. Somebody in the room had to have that first birthday. I'm making up the number. I don't know. June 6th, whatever.
Yeah.
Somebody had to have that. You're number 1 on the board. You're number 1, and
there's nothing you can do.
I can't describe the mood in the room. Whether there were expletives, crying, people resigned to it.
Yeah.
Next number. And my stomach got tighter and tighter and tighter. When they hit 300, I was almost hoping my number was going to be called, because I was afraid maybe I had missed it, but I was 319. So I got a good draft number, a good lottery number that would be probably not be reached. But I went back to the fraternity house, and it was a mixed bag, Tony. Some of the guys were in that 120, some in the 240.
Yeah.
It was so scary. Well, they decided the next year, scientifically, how they do this, that there was a preponderance of certain number of birthdays. So they did it differently in the future. The first number was called, but a second number was pulled from another drum where the number would be. So again, June 6th, but the other drum would be 86th. They were put together. You see what I mean? They did 2 separate draws. That's how scary it was back then.
So you knew through all these rather colorful experiences at Cornell, you wanted to tell the story.
Yes, I did. And that, again, the draft physical is almost comical. What went on in the physical, it was really pretty funny. You read? I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah. So I went through all the beats of the book. There's a lot of great stuff in there.
There's some funny moments too that the freshman swim test gets a lot.
Yeah.
And the lottery and the draft physical.
So then all these real events that happened, how do you balance the historical accuracy with the storytelling? Because I feel like you need to kind of fit it into a storytelling perspective.
I was accurate with it. I read what I could about, and some of the actual factual accounts, Tony, in the newspapers were contradictory. So I tried to get an accurate telling of the story and then dramatize it myself. That's what I really did. So I didn't
think it's hard, right? It's very hard to do.
It was very hard to do, yeah.
Because I think sometimes the event is the event, but it's not interesting enough for the storytelling.
Well, the 7 days, the 7 days of the takeover, April 19th to 7, I don't know, it was 8, 9 days, whatever it was, when the campus was under siege. There were different accounts of what was going on over there. And so even that it was difficult to pinpoint, but I got a pretty good look talking to different people. But I was at a lot of those events, so I remember from memory what happened at the rallies and the faculty meetings and stuff like that. So I saw a lot of it firsthand.
So what events do you know like to include and remove then? Like I feel like there's like looking back at your life, like how do you know like what to put in, what to take out? I think it's so hard to unpack.
The ones that made a difference. The ones that made a difference. I keep thinking back to the student rally, the faculty vote. The faculty was very divided at Cornell, very divided. One of the most poignant moments, and I still remember it, some of the faculty felt that the students in the takeover should be immediately, whatever force was necessary, remove them from the building and let these, quote, hooligans be taken care of. The police were standing by, sheriffs all over. Others felt we would have a bloodbath if that happened. The faculty was split. And I remember, and this is one of the scenes in the book that I remember almost word for word. I was crossing the quadrangle. Every campus has one. Hofstra has one.
Yeah.
And two professors intersected. And they got into I wouldn't call it violent, strong debate on what should happen. And students gathered around and listened. That scene's in the book. But that was one of the ones that had to be there because it showed how disparate the views were about this takeover. And some of the professors, to finish the story, did resign at the end because President Perkins gave in to the demands. Just giving the it's no secret that was the end. I would have done the same thing because students' lives were at stake.
So then, I guess there's an element of nostalgia for sure. When you're looking back and you're writing on the paper, you're thinking about all these events. Do you think that your memory changes the event a little bit, like the way you maybe romanticize the event?
I remember, Tony, I remember it so distinctly. I really think I did nail it pretty well in terms of what actually happened. I wouldn't call it photographic memory, that's too strong, but I do remember exactly those scenes that took place, and I tried to reconstruct them. And I did get some press accounts of what happened, put them together. Although they weren't always the same as what I saw. So I think I got a fairly good account in my book historically of what took place. But those 7 days during the takeover were rough.
So you're saying like it was as accurate as you could have made it.
Yeah,
exactly.
There
was no added
high
stakes
I see what you're saying. No, I could have to increase the drama.
They do that in movies. They it's
I'm
a real event.
Yeah.
Like Argo.
I've heard. Yes.
That whole story.
Remember,
They made a movie on that, but they dramatized it a little more.
I could have created events. In other words, a scene that took place between two students in the dorms. Yeah.
So that it gets the stakes up.
I know what you're saying. No, I did not do that. I did not. But I want to say one thing about the difference between. I've turned this into a screenplay now. Can I say something about that?
Yes, I want to talk about that.
Yeah, I want to talk about that too. And in one of the courses that I took, one particular memory stands out from one professor. I took this course, I think it was at Columbia, summer course. And I remember this quote. A lady comes out of the movie theater and said, the movie wasn't anything like the book. And that has remained with me. It shouldn't, because they're two different media. He stressed that, and that's been with me ever since. The movie or television show should be told in visual terms, cut the dialogue. In a book, you can talk about what's going on in somebody's head and the mood and set this. No, the less dialogue, the better. So the movie and the book should be totally different, as that lady said as she left the theater. And when I turned the first draft of my screenplay, I'm embarrassed to say this was 240 pages, and I got a clear rejection on that one. And I was told
that's long for screenplays.
Very long.
Yeah, I feel
it should
like
be
that's
120. I was told 100 to 120 pages, a page for a 2-hour movie.
Okay.
And I realized I had much too much talk. Show it, don't tell it. Listen, everybody, show
it. No, that's something I learned. I actually took a screenwriting class at Hofstra. Intro to screenwriting. Lauren Kaplan.
Yeah. Okay.
That was a great class. I wrote a couple scripts like Bigfoot and all these crazy stories. But that was something like externalize the internal. Don't tell the audience what the character's thinking.
Exactly.
Like they'll write in the screenplay, the character feels this way because of it. No.
Yeah,
show it. Show like a picture or show I don't know, like a emotion. Don't be like, the audience assumes that's happening.
Exactly. Yeah. And in my second draft, I cut it in half. I cut all the I showed rather than told is what, and I followed my own advice. But it was hard, but I was able to do that.
So then back to character creation. How long did it take you? How accurate were the characters to? I guess you had to fit the characters in the period of time that they exist. They're hybrid characters, so they still have some sort of like real meat from them, like people in your life.
Yeah.
But just walk me through like that how that was with this book.
There were distinct. Let's talk about those 7 days during the takeover. There were distinct characters, distinct personalities. Let's talk about the student leadership of the who were leading the revolt. I coined a word. I hybrided them.
Yeah, you like that. You like that word.
I like that word you gave me.
Yeah.
I was able to get a hybrid of the student leadership. Professors who in the classrooms were supporting the students who were for the protest, and a couple of them, I put them together and made a composite. Now, I was on the fence. It's important to note that I was on the fence. I was not sure what was right with this. So I have to say I was listening. I was not with the student protesters, but I was not with on the other hand, I understand where the administration was coming from. So I was listening. But in one particular class, in the scenes in the book, I expressed my ambivalence about what was going on. Did I get skewered by the students and the professor. And that's scenes in the book. And I'll never forget that because what was the line they used, which is in the book? Did you leave your conscience at the door of this institution when you came here? In other words, I should have been with the student protest movement all the way from the start. And I remember that scene's in the book too. And that was real, and the quote is direct. Yeah.
Wow.
And when I left the classroom very quickly, one of the students, and it's in the story, brushed up against me. Didn't fizz, but it was clear. He was, as we walked out of the room, he was unhappy with me. And a young lady I had dated was also part of that movement, and she saw me on campus. And she made some unkind remarks to me, too. We hadn't seen each other for a long time. Wow. It was a very volatile time, turbulent.
So then, telling a story at a prestigious institution such as Cornell, are there any restrictions, like literally from the school? Because you published this book, like how does that work? You have to like abide by certain things?
No, I told the truth. I mean, I just told them it was my observation. Nobody questioned.
Like, is there any like sort of revisions like that come from like, I don't even know how it works when you publish a book.
I think if I had written a textbook, there might have been. I don't even know that for sure. But mine was a novel, and I tried to. I could have created totally fiction about a protest at a XYZ university and totally fabricated everything. This was based on my observations back then.
I just feel like there's no like guy on your shoulder like double checking everything, make sure it's like accurate or whatever.
I would just try. Did anybody ever write anything in a review? Somebody once questioned one little fact. I forget, but nothing's ever come of that because I was pretty clear cut. That's what took place. I just put characters I dropped them into the scene.
So let's talk about chapters because I think chapters are interesting.
Very
how do you know how many chapters to do? How do you know the length? Because I'm assume they vary.
Yep.
And how do you know like what is the start and end of this and like the arc? Like how do you even like conceptualize that?
It's true for both novels, the one that's coming out now and this one. I know what I want to include. There's a content in each one, so I know when to start it, I know when to finish it, and bottom line on my index cards, I know what I want to accomplish in that chapter.
You think that's the most?
That was
important.
easy. That was easy for me. Both books have lots of chapters. The one I'm finishing now has 61 chapters. They're short chapters, but I know what's going to accomplish in the first one. I mentioned this principal who gets in trouble. Scene one sets the scene, and then suddenly he's arrested. That scene, I knew that was going to be the opening scene in that. I knew it was going to happen number two when he got booked. I knew all 61 chapters in advance.
Wow. So, like, I don't know. I
told you
I'm
OCD.
It's no, but like I said, you got to be for this stuff, right? I think you need to be.
You know where you're going. I know some writers have said to me, they let it unfold as they write. That's not me.
So then let's talk about dialogue. How do you know what to do for that?
Okay, now we go one step further. Plot, characters. Now, I don't want to describe what the characters are doing. I want them to say it. So I get in their heads. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
So I feel like dialogue's a whole nother craft to learn.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, how do you make it seem natural? And like, do you almost like, at least for me, whenever I try to like, practice little like dialogue scenes, I'll have to like visualize the characters speaking to themselves. And like, does this sound natural? Can this be like a real thing that someone says?
Exactly. I go back to that housekeeper, which was the comic relief in my book. She was a character.
Yeah.
And she got into it with the principal who was in that house. And I like those scenes because I was able to get into his head and her head because she didn't want him to get in her way. And there were really some pretty funny scenes in there.
Yeah, I feel like,
I play them. Since I know their personalities, I know how he felt about her, and I know how she
and then it
was.
comes
It
naturally.
came naturally. If that flowed, the dialogue flowed on those ones. I have to say that was the easier part.
I feel like dialogue's always the hard one.
It is hard, but
it's
if
hard.
you get into the heads of the characters and you can do it. I know where he was coming from in this particular scene, and she didn't want to be messed with. She was a really tough lady, and again, the hybrid of several people I know, and they were a good match.
So who do you think's the ideal reader of this book?
This one over here?
Yeah, this one
this
right
one over
here.
here. Anybody who wants to look back at what the turbulent 60s were like, what it was like to live through all ages, all adults, students. It's a glimpse into that turbulent era. It was a turbulent era. The video I'm going to show your class, the last day of class, that CBS documentary, which is wonderful, says this was overheated. I love that word.
About this book?
No, about sorry.
No, you're good.
I
These
think
podcast
violence.
mics these are foreign to you, right?
Right, yeah. In that documentary, Michelle Marsh, who narrates it, unfortunately she passed away recently. She was the anchor at WCBS. Refers to it as the overheated generation, or one of her people she interviews said that it was an overheated generation. It was constant stuff. Again, the civil rights demonstrations, women's lib, Betty Friedan first came out, and the Vietnam War, clouds of the war overtook us. I mean, there's so much was going on. It was tough. There were other events that I could mention too that took place during that period that were also could be very upsetting, and it was just difficult. But it was an exciting time too. As I point out in the book, you started out with Camelot, Kennedy, 1960s, a teenager, all was right with the world. It was great being a teenager. The music was great. You went to the beach, you went to the malt shop, or whatever they called it back then. And then suddenly, in 1963, with Kennedy's assassination, everything changed. And here's a great book if anybody wants to write it out there. One of the things I teach in my script writing class, if you need an idea for a book, start with these two words. What if? What if? What if Kennedy had survived and the Vietnam War went to the front burner? That's a great story that could be told. Give you another one. May I? If I could.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. No, this is great.
In the video that I show the class, the 1968 Democratic Convention was a wild one because you had Gene McCarthy was pushing the end of the war. I don't know if this makes sense to anybody out there, but you had Robert Kennedy and you had Hubert Humphrey. It was going to be quite a convention in Chicago, and then Robert Kennedy was assassinated. But Hubert Humphrey got the nomination and ran against, was it Nixon? Again, I think my history is right. It was Nixon. If Hubert Humphrey had been elected, he would have died in office from cancer, I believe. He could have died at that time. And Edward Muskie was the vice president. What would have happened if the tables had turned and the election had been different? I mean, there's so many what-if stories that possible scriptwriters should consider.
You mentioned you teach scriptwriting
in my class. No, I wish I did.
Oh,
but
okay.
It's one of the modules in my class. I wish I did.
What are all the classes at Hofstra?
Say it again.
What are all the classes at Hofstra that you teach?
The one you have.
Just that one?
Yeah.
You just have how many sessions?
I've done it for 26 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many simultaneous classes do you have of RTVF right now?
Just one.
You just have hours?
Yeah. I taught two other classes filling in. I taught mass media one term when they needed somebody, and I also taught, it was good. It was about the journalism, issues in journalism. I forget what the technical term was, but we read articles. I enjoyed that one. Investigative journalism, how far it should go. That was an interesting class.
Have you done any promotional stuff for this book? Like, I don't know,
no, I'm not
book
good
signing and whatever.
I have a line that I use in my cover letter. I love the writing and hate the selling. So if anybody's out there who's a good publicist, I'll hire you tomorrow. I'm not a good salesperson. I love the writing. That's a line I use in my cover letter.
So this is on Amazon and also
Amazon.
Where else? Just
Amazon, yeah.
Gotcha. How is it like with that Amazon? Like, how do you get that set up? Did you do it or?
Oh, it was easy. KDP, I think it's called KDP, and very easy. They take you step by step. I'm very atechnical. I'm not very good at this kind of computer stuff. I even called it a word processor before.
Yeah, I was totally blown away from that. I was like,
I'm not very good at the technical aspect, but they guided me through everything from inserting the cover, back cover, spine, Everything was programmed
The,
very
the
nicely.
the word processor, like I just in my head I imaged like a I don't know some sort of obscure like machine.
Yeah,
That's just a laptop.
not that long ago, but times have changed. In your class, you're going to see this. I referred a couple of times to telephone operators and switchboards, and I get puzzled looks from the student
Yeah.
in your class. And then I tell them to take out their phone and press O at the bottom and see what happens. Nothing. You're not going to get an operator. It wasn't that many years ago that many calls were connected by operators. It's not the turn of the century. This was times
Yeah.
have changed.
Well, the new generation's all on the phones and
Yeah, but
everything.
you know what's sad about the phones? I'll tell you what bothers me. Take a picture of a Long Island Railroad railway train, circa 1960, 70. Everybody's got a folded newspaper reading it. Cut to now. I took the picture. I have it on my phone. There was not one person reading a paper. They were all on their phones.
Well, also people don't talk anymore to each other.
No, they don't. They don't
Like
text.
the Long Island Railroad, no, everyone's a stranger. No one will want to talk to you. You explained the whole newspaper thing in our class. You were like, "There's no one reads newspaper anymore." And you said there's two newspapers out there now.
Well, you got the New York Times and the Daily News and the Post, basically Newsday's the Long Island paper. But those are the three basic metropolitan dailies right now. Yeah.
And there used to be so many more.
So many. Oh, I listed the ones in the 1950s. How many?
It's funny because I think in movies we still want to use like the whole guy reading newspaper thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it still looks good for camera stuff, but I feel like no one does it anymore.
I miss it. It's a lost habit. It's a lost art. Print journalism.
I feel like this is kind of really journalism, but comic books are still a thing. So that's a good sign.
Yeah.
I'm doing I don't know if I spoke with you about this, but I'm shooting a documentary for a comic book store opening a comic book store, and that's still alive and wealthy. Like they're doing a brick and mortar store. They have books and there's kids coming in. Like so, it's still alive. The physical stuff. So
You've accomplished a lot, young guy.
I don't know. I like to think I haven't.
Yeah,
but,
you certainly have. One thing I miss are magazines that are going online now.
Yeah.
I want to hold a magazine. I'll give you an example. The baseball season is going to start soon, and I always would read Sports Illustrated baseball preview of all the teams. Apparently, it's not in print, so I've been told I have to look at it online. I want. So many of the magazines are going online only, and I want to hold the magazine and read it.
Like your weekly or monthly magazine in the mail or something.
Yeah.
Like I get like the car ones because I like cars. I see the car ones that come in. They still come, thankfully, but one day they probably will go online.
Yeah,
so.
everything seems to be going online. The one that seems to survive is People magazine. And that's interesting because it does tie into what we're talking about. I think people like to read about other people and their lives, and that gets into the character development.
Well, people are a commodity.
Yeah.
Like people want to learn about people.
One thing you didn't ask me about, which I'm going to tell, names. I have fun with the names.
Yeah,
of the
go for it.
characters. Yeah.
The character
I had
names.
problems with names at first. So everybody can't be Smith, Jones, Williams, so look for unusual names. One of the techniques I tried was obituaries. It sounds crazy, but you see some good names in obituaries. Also, another place to look is the phone book. And I'll do this exercise with your class just for fun. Take a phone book, close your eyes, point. That's the last name. Somebody else will come up, point. That'll be the first name. Put them together, and you get some interesting names there with you. Yeah.
Wow.
And then you have to get into the whole intellectual legal aspect in terms of can you make sure you don't use a name that's obviously somebody else's name. And I found that almost every name that I was looking at was somebody in America's had that name, some of the craziest names. But as long as you're not talking about them directly, you're okay.
Are there any like annoying roadblocks involved with publishing a book?
Yeah, unfortunately, again, I'm trying to get a publicist, a publisher, and it's not just me, everybody I speak to. If you look online, there are so many articles written about how to get your book published, how to self-publish. Should you go to a big publishing house? Should you get a publicist? And that's my Achilles heel. If I was assured, like some of the big writers, that every book I wrote would have a mark or somebody to publish it, I could turn out a book a month. I really could. That I can do. Market, selling, promote. That's my weak spot.
Because you're a one-man operation on this. You're doing all the steps, and I think you need an army for that. Well, even like in video production too. Like it's rough for this stuff because I have to rig the lights, do the outline, schedule, shoot it, edit it.
This is an interesting. It's kind of a sad story. One of the big publishing houses, when this book was marketing this book, I got to second base, and they liked it a lot, and
What do you mean second base?
in other words, they were interested. They were going to
Oh, okay.
go with it. Yeah. In other words, it wasn't a home run yet, but they were. I got pretty, and the request was, can you cut all the exposition in the early chapters? Action. The new generation, your generation, just wants action.
Oh, yeah.
They don't want character development. They don't want. They said just action, and I wasn't going to do that. It would destroy the book.
So you said no,
No,
and
I said no.
you
I
just
said, I'm
didn't
not
follow through.
revising. I'm not revising it.
Every exposition, or they probably needed some in there, but just
Not much, and I have a lot in that book about my characters, where
Yeah.
they're from, who they are, what they do, and I think that's important to the story.
Well, when you go to a publisher, they want to make money, right?
Of
so
course.
they want to
Absolutely.
see a
Book
story
sales.
that's going to hook and turn pages. You know?
Book sales. And you go into Barnes & Noble, there's a zillion books for sale. So what's going to make yours jump off the page? And word of mouth is a big thing, obviously. But if I had one wish, would be a publicist and somebody would market my books. I'm not a sales guy. I'm not a salesman. And,
Well, you're an artist. It's hard to do all.
but
this
you just said it though, all in one. You have to be a salesman. I don't want to be.
You have to when you're sort of like, I guess I don't know how to explain it. Maybe until you get that one big book that goes, then you have money coming in from that book, and then you can actually hire
Exactly.
people. Like I apply the same concept to this. Like I have to do everything because I'm not making money with it yet.
Yeah.
If I make money with it, I could like hire a crew, and like this can be more streamlined. I can have a space already set up. Like it's so annoying to have to break this down, set it up every time. Yeah, but it's a good experience, I guess. But same with books, though. It's like you have to do everything.
It's a one-man show, one-person show.
I guess that's just the life of an artist, right?
Yeah.
So we went over audience. So okay, adapting to a screenplay.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about that because that is like you wrote the book and the screenplay, like we were just talking about, is so much different. So much different.
Yes.
So and like I hear that there's even people out there that their sole job is to adapt books into screenplays.
Yeah,
so it's such an art.
Sure. You see that in the Academy Awards. There are awards for adapted screenplay.
Conclave.
That was great.
That was that one.
My first draft of the screenplay looked like it was lifted right out of the book.
Yeah.
I was wrong. It was much too much.
240 pages, right?
Yeah, much too much dialogue. And when I got the first rejection, and they said this is much too long and much too talky, and then I cut down to action scenes. I said, what can I cut? What were the beats in terms of what I wanted to accomplish, and I was able to do that. But that was the big change. The book was nothing like the screenplay, or the screenplay was nothing like the book.
And so you
Some
have this
just
screenplay.
to follow up on that.
Yeah.
Some scenes like the lottery scene, the army physical scene, fraternity rushing scene, because those were action scenes. Those were easy to transplant. But other things, I had to cut.
So the screenplay's done.
Screenplay's
currently.
done, yeah.
The revised version.
Revised version. Now I'm trying to get.
What are you planning to do with that?
Try to get a publicist or an agent to take it and run with it. And to use the term, shop it around.
Would you direct the film or whatever?
I would love to.
Yeah?
But yeah. I got a role for you. You could be one of the 5 freshmen.
I would definitely love to have a role in there. That'd be cool.
You fit into one of the 5. You would.
I've always wanted to act and get that experience.
Yeah.
Because I think it helps. It helps to learn how to act. Like as a director, it helps to learn how actors think on the other end.
You got to learn the other jobs. You know, when they train lawyers, I was told this, that if you're the defense lawyer, they have you argue the prosecution case in practice, so you know what the other person's doing.
It's obviously like you don't have to be a great actor to like. You don't have to like. I'm not saying you have to be this crazy actor, but just to learn and go through the paces of method acting and stuff, and then you can turn around as the director and be like.
But what I do is
this.
when I watch I'm a big TV watcher, and my wife and I go to movies a lot. I often will say that actor or actress would be perfect for my. I have that,
you have a wish list?
Yeah, who I would want. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Any notable actors you can say, or just one or two?
Not usually. They're just from. I can't even name them. They're from
Just
current shows. Yeah, I say that guy would be going back to my new novel about the principal. That guy would make the perfect principal for this job. Who's got everything top of the world, and then this world collapses.
That's another thing. Like the character can only be so good until you get someone to play it. If they're not right for the role, they'll butcher the performance.
Exactly.
You know. And then if you can even have like maybe a less developed character and you bring an actor on board, they're like, let's do this with this. And then they bring it back to life. You know, I've seen so many cases with that.
True.
So.
How true.
So back to chapter. I know we're kind of going all over the place here, but back to the chapters. How do you know what word to end it or sentence to end the chapter?
I believe in cliffhangers at the end. That's too strong a word, but you know what I mean. Something to want the reader to want the next chapter. I look for something that will make the reader want to go on to the next chapter. And I try to. That's what I try to do for every chapter.
And to start the chapter, I feel like too is hard.
Yeah. Well, I'll kind of pick up now. We wanted the answer to the question that was left unanswered in the previous chapter, so now we'll answer it. Yes.
I feel like that's like chapters are the, how do I say it? The beats of the story.
Definitely.
And it's so important to end it. It's like episodes of a TV show. They do the same thing. Cliffhanger.
Sure.
Cliffhanger.
Yeah. I just don't want to end flat. I want something to hook the person into the next.
Nice. So education I wanted to talk about because I think this is very important. You know, you're a teacher. I'm a student right now at Hofstra. And, you know, I think I've told you this before, but like, I don't know. For me, right, for the things that I want to do in the career path that I'm following, school hasn't really helped me too much in terms of advancing that. And I want to know, as a perspective of a teacher, how can like I get the most out of school when I feel like maybe, I don't know, it's not really helping my craft too much. You know what I mean?
I think a broad-based, I've gotten this question before. Broad-based education is very, very important. And let me give you an example from one of the students who was going into journalism. Not
okay. Yeah. Okay.
The minor is very important. The minor subject. This person wanted to go into writing about religion. So I said, then what's your minor? Go theology. Then you should know everything you can about what you're going to write about, the subject. Subject matter content becomes very important to, I think, to students, and I've told them that before. If you're going in to become a teacher, history teacher, then I say take every political science class you can. Your minor is just as important as your major in some ways to get a solid background in different fields. Many have said to me, I don't know what my education has done. I've heard that line before. It does. Like, you need a broad-based education to cover a lot of different bases. It's going to help you down the road.
But for me, what do you think? Like, because I've never had an interview or anything. No one's asked me about my GPA, the classes I've taken. Like, I don't know. I want to sort of like get this conversation because I think it's important from a teacher and a student. Like, I don't know. I think maybe the education system needs to do a better job of serving more creatively inclined students.
One thing I want you to do, and I know you do it, write well.
Yes.
I harped on that with your class. What's the joke I make? The first day of every semester, every time I've been at Hofstra, every class, how many of you went to parochial school? Right? I asked that question. How many? Because you write well. Because the Catholic school system does a great job of teaching grammar. And this has been abandoned by, I won't say all, but by many public schools. And the other line I use is when I mark your papers or grade your papers, I need a bucket of red ink. One thing that was drilled into me both in elementary, middle, and high school, and was junior high school, elementary, junior, and high school, was grammar. And I'm called the grammar police. So that's one thing I have to say. My grammar is pretty good. And it's totally lacking in the students of today, not just Hofstra, all over.
But in terms of like, I guess, the creative student, like the person that, like, I don't like being in a classroom. Like, it doesn't
show to me.
I know. Well, yeah, because I know I discipline myself to go to school and stuff. I have to now. I have one semester left, but I always think like not your class, but other classes. Like I'm like why am I going to this? Like it's like I feel like I'm not getting anything out of it. Like I know what I think. In my case, I know what I want to do, and like I have a clear path of where I want to go. Whereas I think college is good for people that maybe don't have that yet.
Yeah, it's sampling. I just feel we all need a broad base of education. I remember my first day at Cornell. One of those things you don't forget. I don't know why I remember this. I remember taking the course catalog. It was a big fat book, and it listed all the courses. Zoology, I still remember this. The American presidency, botany. I mean, things. I said, wow, I could get a background in all of these subjects. I'm not going to major in them. But I really think that's important. And for the person who doesn't know what he or she wants, that's why college is a chance to sample. I changed majors a number of times. I was an English major at the end. I have a minor in Russian, believe it or not, and I think it's called a minor. I had so many credits.
Yeah.
World Dramatic Lit, I was in for a while. Education. So I bounced around majors, but that's what college is about, to explore. Now, if you are dead set on something, that's one thing. But if you're not sure, and the example I did use with your class, a fraternity brother was an engineering major. And this is important for people watching this podcast to hear. Engineers major from day one. It's not like, you major junior year. They start right away. He got to junior year and said, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I locked in too soon. I didn't explore. And he had a choice of either finishing the major or going back, undoing everything he had done and staying an extra year or two. But my point is, you need to explore those subjects in college and something will grab you. I mentioned before, science was my undoing. I knew I was going to I took geology. My fraternity brother said, that's the way you'll get out of the science requirement. Either take rocks for jocks or physics for poets. Yeah. That did not work. I still floundered. Yeah. But at least I touched upon it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's important.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just think I take so many classes where I'm like, I don't.
Why?
This is not.
Yeah, you're asking why. Yeah.
Yeah, because how's this going to help with my video production business or whatever?
No, it's not, but it's going to help you as a human being, your background, and make some choices down the road. It's content. It is going to help you down the road. How did geology help me? Well, it taught me I knew I wasn't going to be in the science.
Yeah, field. I guess you could take away anything from anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm finding a lot of people, if you do some reading, which I did in preparation for my radio reports, some people think that this liberal arts education isn't wise, what you're talking about, that you want to be an accountant, get right away and take a 2-year program in actuarial science or something like that. So there's some view that you don't have to take all these other courses. I think it's helpful, but I'm just one person.
Yeah.
There's also a big move now toward students going into trades. I know two of my students, they started college, they did okay, didn't like it, and now they're in very lucrative trades, one in auto mechanics and one in electronics. So again, maybe the 4-year traditional liberal arts education that you just described isn't right for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it's important to make that call, if you don't know what you want to do, sure.
Yeah.
But I think, again, for me, when I came to college, I didn't know what I wanted to do for sure. I was a filmmaking major, and I switched to marketing. So I had an arc of what I wanted to do. Like even joining the fraternity too was like open different perspectives and stuff. Yeah, so I think it definitely varies based on person to person.
Fraternities were very helpful to me. It was a good thing for me.
Yeah,
because it broke down a large university into a small unit. A family. I was a big fraternity guy.
Yeah, same. So what do you think this can vast any of your creative writing? The sort of biggest criticism you've received or like lesson you've learned throughout your time, and like how has it helped you the most?
It's a personal one though. It's not. Is that okay if I go?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and this again, I would hope people would listen to. Everyone, work-life balance. If I try very hard. I have 3 sons, 4 granddaughters. I'm married for 53 years, and as I look back, I tried very hard to effect a good balance. I wasn't always successful, and if I had to change things, I might use time better. And that's advice I'd give to anybody and everybody. Mm-hmm. A lot of people waste time. My mother's philosophy was great philosophy. I had terrific parents. I was very lucky. I was an only child growing up in Brooklyn. I was a baby boomer, and my mother's attitude was, I loved her line, make every day a holiday. Make the most of it every day. Do something, make it a holiday. And
I think I'm a workaholic, though.
I am too. But she said, find time for the things you. I'll give you an example. I'm a couch potato at 9:00 at night from 11.
Yeah.
The work turns off. No, I stop. That's a rule.
See, that's something I can't do. I have to work on.
Yeah.
Because I don't let myself relax.
Yeah, I see that.
We've talked about this.
Yes, we did talk about
this. Because I think any second I'm not doing schoolwork or I could be advancing some sort of thing. Like
now I'm interviewing you.
I know how the tables have turned. You're the host.
I'm turning the tables. You've got to break that. I'm going to give your class an exercise where you plot out what you do every hour of the day for 2 weeks, and you'll see it. You've got to build in some downtime. One thing I was good at, and I hope maybe the podcast viewers will pick up on this, I was very good many things I was not good at, but I was very good at using time at college. I saw many students who would hang out all the time. Or they'd go to the undergraduate library to study, but that was the place to see and be seen, not socialize.
Yeah.
So I had a routine, a pretty good routine. I would leave the fraternity, have dinner. I was in the pool, swimming. I was swimming laps, and then by 7:30, I was in the graduate library, not the undergraduate library, at a study carrel, the shelf over the desk. And for 3 hours, 40 minutes per subject, I got everything done. Took a milkshake break, and in the middle, but that was untouchable time, and it worked for me. It gave me Sundays afternoons off. If it was football or something else, but I did not. I was able to compartmentalize work.
Yeah, and that's in the creative business. I think anyone, artist, whatever, you're a filmmaker, content creator, you're a writer. It's so hard to split that up.
But if you write it out, you can do it.
Write
it out,
because there's no like 9 to 5.
No,
it's more of, like I meet people in this industry. They have like a free day on a Tuesday, but then they're working in like San Francisco and like the whole weekend, and like they come back. It's like it's so bippity boppity up and down like everywhere.
Yes.
So it's hard to compartmentalize, especially in this industry because of how volatile.
Then write it out and block out the untouchable time. And I tell the students, when you make this, which we're going to do in your class soon, block out some time. I don't care if you do video games, go to the gym, whatever you want to do. But downtime, if you don't do the downtime, it's not going to work. There was a guy in the fraternity who used to study 24/7 almost. He would be on the cafeteria line. It was called the barf bar line.
The barf bar?
That's what they call the cafeteria
Wow.
line. The food wasn't that great.
Wow.
The barf bar. But he would be reading a book while waiting to be served. He always had a book. And you burn out like that.
Yeah.
I started out that way at college. When I got there, I said, I'm going to make this work. And I studied, like you just described, work every moment. I couldn't take it anymore. So by mid-fall, I joined a couple of organizations, including the drama club most notably. I wasn't very good at it, but I joined. And I had a great time. But my grades plummeted, really plummeted. And that's when I got this idea of mapping out my hours, and it worked for the rest of my Cornell career. But at first, my GPA after joining all those organizations nosedived.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also something to note too in the creative industry, and I know I keep relating it back to filmmaking, which you're not fully like related to, you more in the creative writing space, but still like I think it applies. Everyone's trying to like make it, get their big break. So like they feel like they have to work all the time to make this, get my big break. So it's like, the opportunity cost of like, just sitting on the couch is like, you could be like contacting like studio executives or like, I don't know, or like making something, say a piece that is like crazy. There's always something to do,
Absolutely. I had that. I was that way for a while, but now I have been successful at compartmentalizing my time and finding some time. And all again, with kids and grandkids, especially for family. I was planning to proofread Friday when we got an SOS to babysit for two of my granddaughters, 5 and 3. And I just had to stop proofreading, and I delayed it because I wanted to be with them. I could have said, no, I'm proofreading, but I didn't do that. That's a good point you're making.
Gotcha. Biggest mistake you've made within creative writing, if you can try to, kind of merge it down and niche it down into creative writing, like biggest mistake?
I mentioned before the biggest mistake was trying to turn my novel into a screenplay at first. And it didn't work. I was forcing one medium into another, and that was wrong in terms of dialogue and length. That would probably be the biggest mistake. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's a very important step. I think people like overlook.
I just assumed, I take the book, here's chapter 1, and then turn into and it didn't work.
Yeah.
No, it was a disaster. It turned into a disaster.
Well, I think it's hard to organize stuff for me. I think it's like you just have all these ideas and you don't want to do that, like, I guess, administrative work where it's like just organizing and doing all this stuff. Yeah. You just want to make stuff.
Yeah,
but then it falls apart because there's no foundation in place.
Well, as you said before, if you were the richest guy in the world, you could hire a lot of these people to set this stuff up and you just have time to do what you wanted to do. But that's not the real world.
So, yeah, like as artists, out there starting even, like you have to do every step. As when you start out,
You're
you
on
have
your
to.
own.
You know, there's no shortcuts.
I've often said I would like to have a personal assistant. If I was a rich guy, to take care of a lot of the stuff that you have to do that happens.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, it takes an army to make a film. It takes an army
Correct.
to do anything. It's like you need people. Some people they don't want they don't want help. They don't want to help with their stuff. They want it just to be them. But it's like you're hurting yourself.
Exactly, you are.
It's
Well, you've done a pretty good job yourself getting all this done at your age.
Yeah, I think. Well, again, like I said, I wouldn't be here without people. Like
Yeah.
this is not my studio. This is not my lights. Right. These 2 cameras I don't own. I own the middle.
But
one.
you know how to use them, Tony, and that's important. You do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot to learn for sure. I haven't learned everything, but
it's learning's a process. You'll never learn anything. I haven't learned everything. Yeah. I'm learning all the time also.
And you think when you're writing too, you're learning all the time?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice.
It's a process.
Cool. So looking at the next 5 years, what do you want to accomplish with maybe writing, or what's your sort of trajectory?
2 things. I'd love to see my this novel, and possibly the one that's finishing now, go on the big screen. And I would love to have a role in everything from the casting. I don't think they would hire me as a director, but to have some role in how it's perceived. The story I tell your class when we get to this production directing, the difference between the producer and the director and the scriptwriter. So the scriptwriter comes on set after he sold his screenplay for a nice chunk of change, and he said, "That's not how I perceive this. You're turning my drama into a comedy." And they tell the screenwriter, "Get lost. You finished. That was your job. You're done. You're finished." The director is the artist who now interprets it. The producer is the businessman who gets it done. Those are 3 very distinct roles. As I say, I would not want to see my screenplay turned into a comedy, which it could very easily, because there's some funny scenes on campus in the fraternity. It's serious drama with some funny moments.
I think you can make a deal, right, to be like, yeah, you guys can do this, but I want to have a creative say.
But my fear of saying that is it's their market, and then they say, okay, get lost. It's our once we
buy it.
It's ours. That's what would worry me. But who am I? I'm a novice. I'm a beginner. I'm not in the industry. But I would really not want to see it turned into a.
Yeah, I think that you have to, like, some people, as much as it's cool, like, you probably get a lot of money for it, but like some people maybe they don't want to sell it, their screenplay or whatever, because it gets completely maybe misinterpreted.
Correct.
By the
that's
studio.
That's what I would be fearful.
And then
of.
your art, your life's work is like
exactly. Yeah,
and
that's my. Like, so you asked me. That's right. But the other thing I'd like to do is write more books. The porch is waiting for me.
Yeah,
I have
the
ideas.
Workstation. You said
my workstation out there. As I say, everybody in the neighborhood knows me sitting. They say, "Why do you write on the front porch?" I says, "I like it. I like it."
Do you have like one of those like swinging things?
No, it's just a little open the front door and there's a platform. My bridge table, as I say, coffee pot, music, and dog, and I'm all set to go.
You get the music too.
Oh yeah, the music's good.
You have a speaker or your headphones?
No, just the radio.
A radio. Cool.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm like I envision my like sort of outside thing. We're different. You have the radio and the workstation but for me it would be like probably headphones.
No, I try. Actually, that interferes with the writing.
The headphones.
Yeah, I just need background music. That's what
people like doing stuff in like coffee shops.
Yeah,
you have
I've seen that at. I know people who work at Starbucks set up a desk or the bagel store. Yeah,
it's like white noise. It's not like
correct.
It's just like
and
I think it helps.
I use show music just to anticipate your question. What do I listen to? A lot of Broadway stuff, which is good background music.
Yeah, I think because it's not like
content.
Yeah, it's just like
you have to listen.
Ambience,
right?
And I think it's definitely helped me when I go out somewhere to work because everyone is doing stuff and it's like you get moved, by it. So cool. If you can go back to your younger self for 30 seconds, what would you say?
Go back to my younger self. Tough question, Tony. But
this is the podcast of tough questions.
I'm a lucky guy. Things kind of worked out the way I want. Family first. I would make sure, and even more time, family first, because I enjoy being father and grandfather. I have to say that. I budget my time even better than I did. I would do that. I'm glad I made the decision to go into education, so I wouldn't second guess that. But now I want to really focus on the writing, and that's
nice. Yeah, I think it's people think of mistakes and whatever throughout their life, but a lot of it is just lessons and not mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
They're just things to take away.
Which we said before. That's how you learn from your mistakes. They are lessons. Don't view them as mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What keeps you going? What gets you out of that bed every day and going to teach at Hofstra or writing books? What is it?
Yeah, I think it's my mother's philosophy: make every day a holiday. I look forward to every day. Whether my breakfast, lunch at the coffee shop, playing with the kids, my wife and I going out and doing something together. I try to plan out something fun every day to keep me going.
So, I see you get going in the RTVF class. Like you're really passionate about it. What? I guess this is just a popping question came up. What inspired you to teach that class?
Oh, interesting. It came about in a strange way, and I can thank my wife for that in a way. I taught in high school as an English teacher class called Mass Media. I'll make it short because it's a long story, but I'll make it short. One of my colleagues in the English department was Sybil Del Gaudio, that will ring a bell to some people. She became the chairman of the department at Hofstra. And years later, she was now chairman. She said to me, how about come teaching a media course at Hofstra? And I was on my way to being a principal, and I turned her down. I couldn't. And then she asked me again a year or two. I turned her down. Third time. And my wife said, she's not going to ask you again. Take it. 1999. So I said, okay, I'll take RTVF 1, and the rest is history, 26 years later.
And how much freedom do you have in like crafting the curriculum?
A lot. If you read the description, there are things they want you to accomplish. But as you know, I teach it as 10 mini courses, and I try to cover each of the topics.
A lot.
Yeah, I try to cover each of the mini courses, each of the topics with a mini course. But I can do it the way I want. That's academic freedom a professor has. I remember a time when it was a required course, and there may be as many as 6 sections, and I'm willing to wager that no 2 professors taught it the same way. That's fine. That was their way of doing it. I did it my way. They did it their way. It's no longer a required course. I wish it would be, but it's not. And right now there's 1 section or 2 sections at most of it.
Wow, cool. So this next book, can you say anything about it? Or
It's a cross between a murder mystery and a buddy story.
Wow.
So,
yeah. Is it longer or shorter than 5 Freshmen?
I know the page. It's going to be shorter. It's shorter. Nice. And that's why it might be easier to adapt to a screenplay. This was harder because there were a lot of large demonstrations, stadium scenes, and this would be hard to produce.
Like set pieces, almost.
This is more, to want a better word, domestic. It takes place in a school, a hospital, a house, things like that. There aren't any large groups.
So you like all the school stuff? You do a lot of the
a lot of it's
stuff.
my school. Yeah, my parents were teachers. It was in my DNA to become a teacher. My wife's a teacher. We're a teaching family.
Can you say the title of the book or no? That's
I have wraps. I can say it. Guilty until proven innocent. Yeah.
Okay.
I was given permission to. Yeah.
And so when you release this, I assume when would that be? Or like a couple of months or?
No, weeks, days.
Weeks.
Oh yeah.
And that'll be on Amazon, you say?
Amazon. It's all. They're waiting for me just to push the button. But I'm compulsive. I keep proofreading it. I'm going to do it this afternoon one more time. I'm still finding an apostrophe or 2 spaces.
Yeah. So guilty
until
proven until proven guilty.
Innocent.
Guilty until proven innocent.
Until innocent. Yeah.
Okay, nice. So, any viewers out there, you need a book to read in the next couple of weeks.
Look for me.
Well,
or this
on
one,
Amazon.
5 Freshmen.
I'll leave the links to the books.
The most fun one was the middle one. It's the principle of the thing, Principal PAL. 120 anecdotes, having been a high school principal. And as I warned you, some of them are X-rated, but they're all real. You can't make, and the subtitle of that book is You Can't Make This Stuff Up. And having been in that role for 21 years, trust me, you can't make some of that stuff up.
Yeah, I bet you've heard some crazy stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, cool. This has been awesome.
I think too.
I learned a lot about you today. We have class tomorrow, so I'll have you see you tomorrow.
You better be there.
Yeah, I'll be there for sure. I don't think I skipped 1 class.
You were sick one day.
One day.
I gave you one day.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. I had
a
great time being part of this.
This has been awesome. And for those viewing and watching, stay tuned for future episodes on the Film Forest podcast. This has been episode 9. So thanks.
Thank you.
Cool. That's a wrap.
It was great.